What is up, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls? Welcome to episode 37 of the Be Great podcast. I know that obviously I said I was going to have an episode on Monday. While this is being recorded on Monday, I was not able to get this episode out until Tuesday. I apologize for that, but you are still getting my Monday thoughts. Obviously, we'll get into the transfer portal at the end here, but we got to start with the first round of the playoffs, which was an absolute disaster for the committee. And honestly, it made everyone who talked about the strength of schedule and Indiana, SMU don't deserve it. It made them look really smart yesterday, or not yesterday, but Friday and Saturday. There were no close games. I mean, Texas Clemson was kind of close. Clemson ended up losing by, I think, 2 touchdowns, which I did say that they would not lose by more than 2 touchdowns. So I was at least kind of right about that. And I was right about that game being somewhat close. Um, but man, I said that I could see Indiana Notre Dame being a blowout, and it kind of was. The score was not indicative of how dominant that was from Notre Dame. Indiana clearly just did not belong on the same field. SMU, weirdly enough, SMU as a whole didn't actually play bad, but their QB Jennings, he might as well have been wearing a Penn State jersey. I mean, he was practically playing for Penn State. He played that poorly. It was hard to watch. And then Tennessee just got manhandled, which, yes, I picked Tennessee, but if you would have told me that this result happened, it wouldn't have shocked me. In no way, shape, or form would I have seen a Tennessee blowing out Ohio State, but I totally could have seen Ohio State blowing out Tennessee, coming out with their hair on fire after being embarrassed by Michigan and just putting a pounding on them. That doesn't shock me that much. There are also a lot of narratives that have come out of the first round that I just quite simply don't agree with. A lot of Big Ten homers, or honestly, just a lot of people in general, praising the Big Ten for, in my opinion, absolutely no reason, or their reason is, quite frankly, stupid. And we're gonna get in. We're gonna get into that. I saw someone on Twitter who said, "Oh, the three best teams in the country are all clearly Big Ten teams: Oregon, Ohio State, and Penn State." And I think that is a take that honestly, that person deserves to be drug tested immediately. If you think Penn State's a top three team in the country, you have no idea what you're watching, and you just clearly do not understand college football. Penn State is quite. If you hear my dog whining, by the way, I apologize. She's just so needy. If you think Penn State is better than Texas, you're delusional. If you think Penn State's better than Georgia, you're delusional. If you think Penn State's better than Notre Dame, you are delusional. You're delusional. Yeah, cool. Penn State beat up on SMU, a team that everyone thought didn't belong in the playoffs, anyways. They beat up on an SMU team whose quarterback was actively trying to lose, it felt like at times. So no, that doesn't impress me. What Penn State did does not impress me. It garners no favors. Like I don't understand the sudden praise for Penn State. Are you kidding me right now? Their defense looked dominant. I would hope so against SMU. I would hope it looked dominant. I mean, what are we talking about right now? And so many predictions. I said, look, I'm a Georgia fan. I've never, honestly, I don't know if I've ever been more confident in a Georgia win than what I feel about this Notre Dame game. I am 100% confident and can tell you with 100% certainty Georgia is beating Notre Dame. I don't care if it's by 1 point, 3 points, a touchdown, 10 points, 2 touchdowns. I don't care about how much it is. I promise you Georgia wins that game. I promise you they do. And I don't need to know. It doesn't. And look, Gunnar Stockton, it doesn't matter. The thing that tells me that Georgia will win is the simple fact that you have given Kirby Smart 3 weeks to prepare. If you give Kirby Smart 3 weeks to prepare, he will be anybody not named Nick Saban. I can promise you that. I can promise you that. And that's why Georgia's going to win that game. And also, look how Georgia plays historically against run only football teams. We don't lose to run only to offenses that primarily run the football. That usually doesn't go well for that team offensively. And look, I think Notre Dame's defense is good, although Riley Mills will not be playing, which is a big loss for that Notre Dame defensive line. But quite frankly, I think the Notre Dame defensive line and Notre Dame offensive line is going to get pushed around, and I think that's going to be their downfall. I don't think Georgia's going to win by 30 or something absurd like that, but I guarantee you Georgia wins by double digit points. They'll win by at least 10. I promise you that. And I feel very confident about that. I really do. As far as the other games in the second round, Texas, Arizona State. I think Texas, Arizona State could be similar to how Texas, Clemson, went and finished. A somewhat close game. Maybe it's close at halftime, and then Texas just pulls away and wins by 2 or 3 touchdowns. I think Penn State's going to destroy Boise State, and people will continue to overhype them, which, as a Georgia fan, that's exactly what I would want. Go ahead, overhype them, and then Georgia puts an absolute whipping on them in the semifinals. Just watch. And I think Oregon beats Ohio State. I think Ohio State had a fantastic performance against Tennessee. But again, Ryan Day desperately needed that win. He desperately need because if he doesn't win that game, he's probably fired. Um, but again, with 3 weeks of preparation, I don't see how Ohio State beats Oregon. I just really don't. I think Oregon's quite simply the better football team at this point. Of course, would I be shocked if Ohio State wins? Not necessarily. Ohio State's a good football team, obviously, but I think at this point, Oregon has the better quarterback, and they've had more time to prepare and are more rested. And I think that will just lend. Um, I think that just you just have to go in their favor at this point. Um, and I honestly, I fully expect to see Texas versus Oregon, Georgia versus Penn State. I think it's a lock. I really do. I think it is a lock to see Texas, Oregon, Georgia, Penn State. And I like Oregon in their game against Texas. I love Georgia against Penn State. And this is what I've said this entire time. I love Georgia how Georgia matches up against everyone in the lower bracket. Love it. Georgia would have destroyed Indiana. They would destroy Boise State. They would destroy SMU, obviously. But you talk about the other two good teams in our side of the bracket. Notre Dame, I don't think matches up well with Georgia, and neither does Penn State because Penn State and Notre Dame are actually similar if you think about it. Really stout defense, primarily rushing attack offense. That's what they are. That's what they are. And I don't think that game plan is going to bode well against Georgia. It never will bode well against Georgia. You look back 3 years ago when Michigan played Georgia in the semifinal game, they were a primarily running football team. Their O line won the award that year for best O line in the country, and they got absolutely manhandled by Georgia. Now, granted, that was a different team, a different defense, right? But it still doesn't change the fact that historically speaking, primarily rushing offenses typically do not bode well against Kirby Smart defenses. That's the reality. And honestly, it's so hilarious to me because you see all the takes. The amount of times I've seen brackets that have Penn State in the national championship, Notre Dame winning it all. Have you lost your mind? Look, I understand that you don't know what Gunnar Stockton can be. But I think we can all agree that Stetson Bennett wasn't the greatest quarterback of all time or anything like that. Stetson Bennett was a good football player. But we all saw how that ended. Of course, different team, different players, right? But I love how just because, oh, we have Gunner instead of Carson, by the way, even though Gunner came back against Texas and won that football game, that you have people saying, oh, well, it's Gunner. I just don't know what to expect. I can't trust Georgia. So you can't, you, so you're just willing to forget how great the defense is. You're willing to forget that we have the best head coach in college football. Okay, you're gonna regret that. But there was literally someone after the Notre Dame Indiana game who said on national television, "I'm gonna say the quiet part out loud. Notre Dame is beating Georgia." I like. Am I in a different reality? Are we in an alternate timeline, an alternate universe? Like Kirby Smart had to pay you to say that. Okay? And then you had Kirby Smart go, oh, he was on ESPN on College Game Day, and you had the Notre Dame fans chanting, "We want Georgia." Let me ask you a question. Every fan base who chanted, "We want Bama," how did that end for all of them? Not well. Texas, what did they chant before the season started? "We want Georgia." How's that going, by the way? Oh, that's right, they're 0-2. They're 0-2. Kirby Smart said it a million times. We will not be hunted at the University of Georgia. We will always be the hunters. Humility is only a week away. In this case, a little over a week. I think this Georgia team and Kirby Smart are about to remind everyone just who the hell we are. Because clearly everyone has forgotten. And they want to give, oh, Penn State, they're going to the national championship. Oh, Notre Dame, they're beating Georgia. Okay. Okay. All the same people who said, "Oh, SMU, they're not that good. Why are they in the playoffs? Oh, Indiana, they're frauds. They've played nobody." And then Penn State and Notre Dame go and beat them, and all of a sudden, that just because they dominated those mid teams, you say, "Oh my gosh, Notre Dame and Penn State, they're so good." Okay, sure, bro. Sure. The only win that was impressive was Ohio State's win over Tennessee. The other three, excuse me, the other three were not impressive. They simply weren't. As far as Oregon, Ohio State is concerned, I kind of touched on it. I just think Oregon's the better football team at this point. And I think the teams that got that extra week of rest and preparation are going to benefit greatly. I just don't think Boise State and Arizona State have the talent to be able to win their games. But let's move on to the transfer portal. You had Eric Singleton Jr. this morning, the Georgia Tech wide receiver, number 2 overall player currently in the portal, commit to Auburn, which as a Georgia fan makes me sad. You have so Zachariah Branch, he got a prediction, an early prediction. I think it was today. The early prediction is for him to end up at Georgia, which as a Georgia fan I would love, but of course it's an early prediction. So a lot of things can still change. I know that Fernando Mendoza, the Cal quarterback, he is expected to make his decision imminently. It's pretty much between Georgia and Indiana, so we'll kind of see where he lands. I would love him at Georgia, but honestly, I think he'd do great things at Indiana too. I think he'd be a really good starting quarterback for Indiana. Dane Key expected to make Kentucky wide receiver expected to make his decision sometime soon as well. He's expected to choose Georgia as well. See, were there any other big ones? I think Justice Haynes also expected to make his decision sometime soon. Eric O'Neill, edge rusher from James Madison, into the transfer portal. He's a really good player. See, a lot of the transfer portal stuff has kind of slowed down. Aaron Noland, Ohio State quarterback. I think I saw a prediction out today for him for South Carolina, which is interesting. I don't know why he would go to South Carolina when they have Lenoris Sellers, but it's, I mean, what do you, I guess. I mean, I don't know. I'll tell you what. I keep checking. I check every day to see if Fluff Bothwell has made a decision simply because I love his name. I want him to end up at Vanderbilt so badly, and I heard that he has, I think, taken a visit to Vanderbilt. Oh, I would love it. I honestly, I'd consider getting a jersey. I really would. But honestly, I think I'd want it to say Fluff on the back. I don't want it to say his full name on the back, Fluff Bothwell. But that's how I feel about it. Today's a little bit of a shorter episode. I've been feeling a little bit under the weather, unfortunately. But I wanted to make sure that I got this out to you guys. Um, I hope everyone enjoys their Christmas. And I don't know when I'm going to try and get an episode out on Friday, but I might not be able to. And if I'm not able to get one out on Friday, then I probably won't be able to get another episode out until probably Friday, the next Friday, January 3rd. Just because I'll just be so busy around the New Year's as well. So if you don't hear from me, if you don't hear from me and get an episode on Friday, then you will not hear from me until after the quarterfinal matchups. So I guess I'll go ahead. You should probably know what my prediction is right now from what I've been saying, but my predictions are very simple, and I feel very confident in all of them. Texas, Penn State, Oregon, Georgia. I feel very confident in all four of those. I think it's almost a lock. So yeah, that's my prediction. I hope everyone has a great Christmas, a great New Year's. And yeah, have a great day and go Dogs.